Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And we actually have a viewer request for this film. It is the 2019 movie Ready or Not. Here is your trivia question for today. Once the Ladamus family is given their weapons to hunt down Grace, how does Fitch prepare? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So our film starts off with us meeting our main characters, Alex Ladamos and his soon-to-be bride, Grace. In fact, we're actually running into these two lovebirds on the day of their wedding. The ceremony is actually taking place on the Ladamas estate, where Alex has not been back for many, many years, but we get to meet him and all of his family members. In this universe, the Ladamas name is actually very well known, as it is a very famous board game company. Now, once these two are officially married, Grace apparently has to participate in a family tradition. She will have to join the rest of the family in a secret game room where she must pick a card from a card box, and on that card, it will tell her what game she will have to play. Now, apparently, there's only one really bad card to pull from that card box, and of course, Grace pulls it, and the game is hide and seek. Now, the way that the game is played is Grace can hide anywhere in the mansion, but to win, she has to hide until dawn. Now, while she is hidden, the rest of the Ladamus family will have to try and find her. Unfortunately for Grace, they play for keeps. So, will Grace be able to protect herself from this crazy family? And will Alex actually step up and help her out after taking her into this situation? This movie was directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette. Samara Weaving, who does a great job as Grace, was not the only actress up for the role, but you can definitely tell that they had a type, as the other actress who was up for it was Margot Robbie. There were 17 different versions of Grace's wedding dress that were shown throughout the film to show Grace's progression. The yellow Chuck Taylors that she wears actually had to be painted because Converse had actually stopped making them in that color. In the sequences where Samara Weaving is driving, she actually had to fake it as she didn't know how. The original script actually had Grace getting sacrificed by the end. Luckily, they changed that. There's a moment in the film where Samara Weaving's Grace and Andy McDowell's Becky get into a fight. Now, in actuality, when Grace smacks her across the face with that card box, that actually happened as Weaving mistakenly smacked McDowell in the face. Luckily, she was okay. The Ladamus family empire is supposed to be based off of the Milton Bradley and Parker Brothers companies, which actually no longer exist at this point as they're now owned by Hasbro. There was actually nearly 200 fictional board game names that were submitted to use in the film. Only a small handful were actually used. Those names were Family Ritual, Secret Council, LaBelle's Gambit, Sunrise, Abracadabra, Public Defendant, and Fortune Teller. When the weapons are handed out to the family members, Emily receives a pepperbox revolver. This is actually a nod towards the board game Clue, because as you see, since 1972, they've actually used the pepperbox revolver as one of the few weapons. The masks that the Ladamus family uses in the opening sequence and one of the children uses later is actually an homage to a Twilight Zone episode called The Masks from 1964, which was actually about a wealthy family. The ghost or spirit of Mr. LaBelle that we see in the film was performed by James Vanderbilt as a cameo. This movie was primarily filmed in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, at a location called Casa Loma. This is actually a public museum where quite a few other movies have been filmed, including Crimson Peak, The Pacifier, X-Men, and even Billy Madison. The Goat Pit was actually the only set that was built for this film. The body count for this film is 14. So when it comes to the film Ready or Not, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, but I do have to say there are definitely some points that were either kind of confusing or just a little too silly. So I think I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. And if you did enjoy this movie, other movies I would recommend checking out are Would You Rather, Knives Out, The Hunt, and You're Next. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, once the Ladamus family is given their weapons to hunt down Grace, how does Fitch prepare? So Fitch is given the crossbow and maybe a scene or two later We see that he's watching a YouTube video called Getting to Know Your Crossbow. Also, if you didn't know this, the two actors in that video were actually the writers for this film. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.